without further ado, the beginning of the third in the trilogy, the revenge. No, not really. Another lovely talk. I would like to welcome Jackie Grindrod. The charity she has chosen today is called heartandstroke.ca. Please, there will be links for it in the chat. Visit it. If you can give, please do. And one of the questions that I've been asking is, who's your favorite Animal Crossing neighbor? And it turns out Jackie's is Felicity. And I think that's an excellent choice. Felicity's a delight. She doesn't live on my island yet, but someday she will. Today, Jackie will be talking to us about You Will Not Go to Space Today. Jackie, welcome. Everyone, please give a warm virtual welcome to Jackie Grindrod.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today. This is such a cool conference. There's been so many great talks already today and some really hard acts to follow, and I'm going to do my absolute best. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you're tuning in from today. This talk is going to be a little bit like one of those movies where the end comes first. We're not going to space, at least not today. Today, we're on a deserted island, and the Dodo Aerospace program just hasn't made it off the ground yet. So where did this talk come from? It started with an internal announcement that HashiCorp Nomad's engineering team would be doing a hack week. I'd been looking for some new technical work to dig into, as well as excuses to get closer to the Nomad team. This felt like the perfect opportunity for me. I kept hearing about it in our meetings and was already getting serious FOMO. So I asked if I could join, and I was absolutely delighted when I got the go-ahead. But before we continue, here's a little bit about who I am. I recently moved into a new role as a developer advocate at HashiCorp. Prior to that, I spent about 5 years as a DevOps practitioner, and most of those were in the digital healthcare space. It's important to note that I am not a game dev, and I'm also not a space expert. I'd like to walk you through the last 2 weeks or so of my life, the story of this game development, and the experiences that we had along the way. So we'll start off with our mission. A teammate pitched to me an idea about building a game that would visually demonstrate Raft. For those not familiar, myself included, Raft is a consensus algorithm for fault tolerance and performance that's used by HashiCorp's Nomad and console products. I didn't really know anything about Raft, and I really wasn't sure about this idea of building a video game in 3 days, but it met my goal of trying some new tech and working with new teammates that I don't get to work with every day. So I dove right in with her, which leads us to Space Hack. I know it's a weird name, but whatever, we're rolling with it. It was written by somebody who has never built a game or been to space. It's about collaboratively making it to space during a time of unprecedented isolation. Our goal was to create a game where we work together to face challenges and also explore our surroundings with our community. We took inspiration from various games, including Jackbox, Space Team, and NetHack. From Jackbox, we took the concepts of quick, short-lived party games, flexible for a range of players. From Space Team, we took the concepts of needing to work together and sharing insight on how to clear levels. It was really hard to figure out how Space Team worked because it requires everybody to be in the same room. So I didn't actually get to demo it while we were trying to build this, so that's my best pitch. And from NetHack, we took the roguelike concept of exploring dynamically generated levels within a world that's created around you. Going into development, we had 2 main goals for this game. So our first goal was that it should be able to support remote multiplayer. My family and some of my friends live 20 hours away from me during the best of times, and now the rest of my friends might as well be that far away. And my teammate Jasmine uses Minecraft to spend time with her family that she's not able to visit right now. We wanted to make something that could help us to connect with them despite the distances. And so it became one of our goals to do something that would support remote multiplayer. Our second goal was to tackle an uplifting experience. We wanted to make sure that whatever game we created wouldn't leave our users or us as the developers stressed out and frustrated. We wanted something that would be uplifting and good to balance out everything else we might be feeling right now. Coming out of those concepts, we had a couple typical DevOps practices that you might see around. They're usually associated with it. Those goals felt like they naturally relied on these if we wanted to actually make the game. So scalable infrastructure and infrastructure as code both felt imperative for us to be able to handle dynamically generated rooms for an arbitrary number of players. We looked at this problem and had no idea how we were going to do it, but we knew we didn't want to manually create each room and each server that ran it. We also wanted to make sure that we could build and deploy consistently so that we could have the experience that felt good and also our players could have a consistent experience. There is nothing more frustrating than playing a game with people and encountering game-ruining bugs to find out that it's because of your operating system and you just can't do anything about it. Which brings us into phase 1 of our project, which was a terminal disaster. At this point, we were playing NetHack and trying really hard to get a feeling for what a terminal-based game would run like, and we wanted to build one ourselves. So our expectations were that we'd build something really cool and really fun, or at least that was the hope. After scouring the internet, we looked for Go-based terminal frameworks. We came across Termloop. It had some very promising games built on it, such as Go Man's Sky, that looked fun and like, hey, we could probably do this. We didn't really know what we were getting into, but we were optimistic that it was going to be awesome. And we wanted to make spaceship quadrants based on XKCD's Upgoer 5 comic, which is on the right, where we'd have different player roles assigned to them, and they'd have different quadrants to explore. We had a lot of really fun ideas. We wanted to try and document all of them, including player roles and how the items would work with those players and what they would do in the spaceship. The reality was not so great. We didn't make it very far. Termloop had some excellent examples out there with it. It just didn't fit our immediate needs and our super short time frame. Some of the problems we ran into were, well, term color is hard. I think about that when I set up scripts, but I don't necessarily think about it in a game setting. So what was green on my screen was actually pink on my teammate's terminal, and we hadn't really considered how those setups would impact our player experience. The second thing we ran into was scene connectivity issues. So we got this welcome to SpaceHack page that looked fun, it felt great, but we couldn't actually get it to do anything. We couldn't connect it to the gameplay screen no matter what we tried. And also, the game screen was straight from a tutorial. So right off the bat, you're probably looking at this and going, but wait, that's a field with a lake. I thought we were in space. I know, me too. Finally, we weren't able to figure out how we were going to do multiplayer. How would we be able to connect a bunch of private laptop connection terminal sessions together in order to share a game state? We just couldn't figure it out. So halfway into the hackathon, we pivoted. So that brought us to our growing pains. I found a 42-minute long, promising tutorial on how to build a simple roguelike game with auto-generating maps and levels. It seemed like a great win that was definitely too good to be true. And spoiler, it was. 42 minutes quickly turned into 50 hours of game development. But at the end of all of it, it worked, which is more than I hoped for. We found that it had a really steep learning curve. At least half of that 50 hours in the first week went into understanding tile maps and tile sets. There's a lot of different ways to create a tile map. Those are what the room and maps use, or what the rooms and maps are based off, that what my character would be navigating through. Some options we had available to us were custom hand placing the tiles individually, which is super time consuming. Creating auto tile maps, which I tried for a really long time and just couldn't get working, or procedurally generating the rooms. But first we had to find tile sets. The image on the right was my first attempt to create a custom room using individual tiles. I was probably a little bit too enthusiastic about what kind of aspects would go into this and how I wanted it to look. And I pretty much ended up like the wholesome doggo meme on the left, just heckin' stuck and wanting help. So that brought us to our first big decision. We had to decide between aesthetics or function. There were a lot of bumps along the way, and honestly, they're not really going to fit in this talk. It'd be its own talk on its own, so I'm happy to answer them in Q&A or after. But one of our first goal-decided decisions was whether we'd be aesthetic or functional. I spent a lot of time trying to make the left one look pretty, but at the end of the day, it didn't work. And our goals of remote play and ability to scale meant that we had to go with something that did work. So we chose procedurally generated rooms and levels. We believed that this would make it a lot easier to allow different numbers of players and different rooms, in addition to keeping each run of the game different. We didn't want a game where you could go in and know exactly what was going to happen because you already played it once. And honestly, this led to some really interesting troubleshooting scenarios, because even I didn't know what the level would look like or where the items were. It was hard. Another decision we made was whether or not to include enemies. Traditionally, roguelike games come with enemies in combat, but coming into this screen didn't feel very uplifting. It was really stressful. It was like, where are these aliens coming from? Why are they in the walls? I didn't code this many. Why are they all here? We felt that having adversarial mobs didn't have an uplifting experience, and we didn't want to give that to our user. Our first set of expectations in terms of how awesome this is going to be and what it would look like is pipelines. I have spent too many years talking about pipelines and wanting to build them. So coming into a new project was like, we're going to start here and it's going to be great. And what we thought we'd do is have some local development. We push to GitHub, we'd do a PR. And when the PR was merged into master, we'd have a Jenkins X pipeline that would run and then build and export the artifacts and deploy those to a Nomad console cluster on AWS. It's a lot merged into one. I'm going to try and go through a little bit, but yeah. So the architecture that we expected to have was deployed using Packer and Terraform to AWS with Nomad and console running. This is not my prettiest slide, sorry. And the hope was that we would have this Nomad job, which was our game room scheduler, that would help us with dynamically provisioning out the rooms and letting clients connect into rooms that they wanted to use. We would use that game room server as our source of truth for the game's state and the environment that our players would be connecting to. So this was our plan, to be able to scale and have more game sessions with arbitrary numbers of users and actually have it work. It was either this or diving straight into peer-to-peer game development, and neither of us had a mental model of what that would look like. Please keep in mind, this was our first time, so it was kind of like, we'll just run with this one. As a note, the infrastructure as code side of this does actually work. It's just not connected to anything. So the reality of what we got looked a little bit more like this. Sometimes getting the right pieces in the right place at the right time just isn't possible. And we need to be okay with that and accept that we're learning and we're going to move on. What we had was a hacked together pipeline based on this GitLab CI that I found somewhere on the internet because it was the first and the clearest example I could actually find. And kudos to the person who built it because it actually worked within the first 3 tries. The idea here is that we coded locally, we pushed that to a branch in GitHub, and then because it was running on GitLab, when I needed to deploy it, I would then pull our master from GitHub, push it to GitLab, and that would trigger the CI pipeline that would then deploy it to a GitLab pages. So not quite what we intended to build, but it did work. Didn't feel great, but next iteration will fix that. And this brings us to the next chapter in our story. Bugs. Bugs everywhere. Completing the tutorial left me further along than I ever expected to get with game dev, but also suddenly I was off the training wheels and everything was a new problem that had to be solved. We found the official documentation pretty difficult to work with, which also made learning on our own to how to build things pretty hard. But we still had big goals and we wanted to finish them. We wanted to be able to personalize our game, and these were our 3 key things that we intended to personalize to make it more ours and less just a tutorial we focused on. So the idea with items was that we would use our items to support the goal of remote collaboration. This meant we needed an incentive for players to work together. So we came up with a strategy where a player would see 2 items that they need to get on each level, but they might not be spawned on their own map. That meant that they would need to describe the objects they saw to their teammates so the teammates could find it in their map and help the team to progress. To emphasize communication, we also added unnecessary items. If you picked those up, they'll lower your score and possibly even give you a game over. We thought from a story perspective that that would make sense. If your sysadmin in the control room sees that the engine room is overheating and they have this magical coolant as a key item that's going to help bring the temperature down, perhaps the engineer can find it in the engine room and be able to grab it and help bring the temperature down. But if they decide to go do something else and the temperature continues to climb, we thought it was fair that that would actually hamper your progress through space or to space. After tile maps, items were the next hardest thing to implement, and they came with some pretty interesting bugs. So the first of which was this bug. It included items stacking on top of other items spawning where they just really shouldn't be spawning, and items that were visible but did absolutely nothing. It was crucial for us to fix this because without this feature, it didn't really feel like we'd be able to make it to a game that would scale and generate the levels and items. So our function, we found this to be a combination of a couple problems. Our function to reset the level didn't always get called due to a code scope issue. That was why sometimes we got items in space or visible but unusable. It's because they weren't cleared from the last level. It ended up being a really easy fix where we just moved the function to a place where it was actually in scope all the time. However, that didn't fix everything. We still had items spawning where they shouldn't, like the hallway, which meant that if your room was blocked by an unnecessary item at the very beginning, you instantly lost the game and could do absolutely nothing about it. Again, not an uplifting experience. We ended up working around that one by adding an additional tile for the room floors and forcing items to spawn on that. Second item bug was the light bulb. Anyone who saw my live stream is probably really familiar with these faces. It was the entire focus for 3.5 hours of my stream. No matter what I tried, I just could not get this thing working. Even though all the other items worked, it would spawn in space, or maybe the walls. Sometimes it was in the room and it wasn't usable. And other times it would drop in the first room, it would work, but it was invisible. It was a long 3.5 hours of questioning myself and why I was streaming myself failing over and over and over again. But something good did come out of this. A fellow streamer was watching at the time and asked if he could try something new and make pixel art for the game. He did, and even though I didn't fix the light bulb by the end of this, it was still heartwarming and it made the whole experience worth it. The second personalization part we did was to add a timer. We wanted to add a little pressure for players to work together quickly. We hoped that the timer would be long enough that it was okay to take your time, but completing levels faster leads to a bigger score bonus. We did this in the spirit of making it quick, fun, and social games that you could run and then run again with your friends. We have another bug that was unfortunately unresolved and also not uplifting. It happens where sometimes a room will spawn right next to another room, making key items or portals inaccessible. We suspect it has to do with the pathfinding algorithm that handles the room generation, but it probably just needs an adjustment to add a requirement for one tile between the rooms. Again, not an uplifting experience, but we're working on it. And our final bug that we ran into was I didn't actually remember to get a screenshot of it, so we get this picture of me crying in Animal Crossing instead. It was export issues. It was really hard to get these to work, but it was really critical. We wanted our game to be accessible to different kinds of users. Players like my mom would probably prefer to run a web client versus downloading the game from Steam or as a binary to her computer. And getting these to work was another roller coaster. At first, it deployed without the timer, the items, or the level count, and was unplayable, really. It turns out that we didn't have scenes for those, and the compiler was treating them as orphaned and therefore not including them in the export. So that does work. Which brings us to now, really. That's the last 2 weeks. What's next? Well, we started with getting some feedback. This is my ugliest slide, which I guess is fitting because it says ugly. But we got the good, the bad, the ugly. So we got some feedback that was good. This isn't all the feedback that we got, but some of it was fun enough to put here. A personal favorite was, if I see you will not go to space one more time, I'm breaking my laptop. This game is hard. That hurt. So I was like, oh, that doesn't meet our goals. So out of this feedback, we took it and started making changes already. So there's now instructions so that players don't just have to like guess what the items are for. And coming up next, we're going to be working on networking and setting up the multiplayer lobby and character selection, because we think that'll really enhance the experience. And then tying this together with the actual cluster that's running in AWS so that we can meet our original goals. I have some lessons to share that I learned in space. First and foremost, just always give yourself the space to be gentle to ourselves. It's hard when we're always sprinting towards the next deliverable, but things aren't just lining up. And it's hard to pick up new things and just run with it. I'm still working on this too. I kept stressing about the little details just not being right and not getting things done in time to show you today. It is so important that we just give ourselves the space to look back, have fun with our learning, and reflect on just how far we've come. As much as I've been hard, I never thought I could build a video game, never mind in 2 weeks. So my second lesson is about DevOps tools versus, oh, that's supposed to say DevOps culture and not cult, but I guess that works. Oops. I talked a little bit about tools and processes so far, but not so much about culture. I do think that tools and processes have their space in the big picture, but to me, the heart of building good DevOps is bridging systems and people together in a community that then collaborates to solve problems. I came into this hoping to work with at least one other person. I didn't expect to meet somebody from the streaming community who'd volunteer to try something new and help out. And I was delighted by the chance to actively develop and work with a friend I actually haven't had the chance to work with before. This game really brought together parts of my life that don't normally get to intersect. And I think that's part of the beauty of having a DevOps mindset. Whether you're a designer, a support engineer, SysOps, security, a dev, or really anything else, we're all here solving this problem together. My final lesson learned in space is that empathetic documentation is key. Without going into too much detail, I struggled a lot to get started with the documentation. It wasn't easy to follow, and it made a lot of assumptions about knowledge and steps I didn't know I needed. I think that if we as a community can help people of other backgrounds and depths of experience by writing documentation in an approachable way, we'll continue to grow our community and get better. While I was disappointed with the docs, I was thrilled to see the community's tutorials and help guides. Almost all of my progress is due to those. So if you're listening today, or if you're watching this later, I'd like to ask you to do this. If you're thinking about writing a guide or a tutorial or something to help, but maybe you're not sure if you should, please do. We need you and we need your experience. So just to recap, my name's Jackie. I'm a developer advocate at HashiCorp. I'm looking forward to continuing this project and sharing what I learned during it. You can reach me on GitHub as GoGoCoco. There's a story here, but it's for another time. Or Twitch, Twitter, or Discord as DevOps Jackie. Again, I'm not a space expert, but if my talk has sparked any curiosity for how space actually works, I strongly recommend checking out Sophia's content. She is an actual space expert who does cosmology and astroparticle theory, and she has tons of really cool content about dark matter. Finally, in an unexpected twist ending, we did make it to space. The one thing I want you to walk away with today is this. Remember, in times where it feels hard or dark, we are not powerless. You are the light that can help to make things smoother, better, or brighter for those around you. Thank you for coming to listen to my talk, and I look forward to any questions and discussion points you may have for me. Thank you again to all of the organizers and other speakers and everybody who's come to watch. I am so thrilled to be a part of this.
Oh my gosh, Jackie, thank you. I think I'm blushing. I love it so much. Everyone, please give enthusiastic, vibrant thank yous to Jackie in the various chats. Yeah, I'm not crying. You're crying.
There might be a tear in my eye.
It's fine. It's fine. There is one question in the chat. What was your strategy for testing the game since so much of the levels randomly generated? How do you make sure that things are they're supposed to be there are actually there?
Oh, try and try again. We didn't actually know how to code testing in for this. It was a 2-week project and it was a lot to learn. But we kept running it. We ran it on different computers. Mobile doesn't work. That's where that nasty bug capture came from. But
yeah,
we keep trying. Yeah,
that's amazing. There's a lot of love for this talk. It was just a true delight. And as someone who also I am not someone who calls myself a game developer, but I am someone who likes to try to build games. I empathize completely. It's very satisfying when they work and it's really frustrating when they don't. And this is amazingly impressive. I love it. Everyone, please. One more question. Woo, I'm excited now. Sorry, I just I saw it and then I got excited. Are there technology selections you made then that knowing more now you might choose differently?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have to think about that. I mean, we had a lot of issues with, originally we put the whole thing into a script because that's what the tutorial did. And it was just a 600-line file, which was not fun to work with. And it gave us some other problems later. I think if I had the knowledge I have now, I would have gone back and split it up because we couldn't get through networking yet because everything else is so tangled. So it was actually the really big blocker.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. Other questions, feel free to put in the speaker Q&A channel. Find Jackie on the internet and I was really amazed. Do you mind in the chat sharing the details for the person you linked, who works with cosmology?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I just think that's cool, and I would like to follow this person. I want to know more about the universe. So
She's
thank you,
awesome.
Jackie, for helping us learn about the universe and ourselves today. Everyone, one more warm thank you for Jackie.
Thank you.